Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Project Stargate. I'm your host, Mark Brenner, and today we have my co-host, Greg Ship, with us today. How are you, Greg?
Excellent, thank you.
All right, man. Very, very cool episode last week with Niara Isley. Very much enjoyed having her on the program. I'm looking. Have you had a chance to listen to it yet, man?
Not yet, but I will get to it soon.
It's controversial, it's fascinating, and it's very informative. And I think it's something every American man, woman, and child needs to be aware of, at least to some degree. A lot about the deep state, various types of paranormal phenomenon this woman experienced. If you haven't had a chance to listen to this podcast, I definitely recommend it. It is the second episode for season 2. Check it out, Niara Isley. Anyway, Greg, how's everything going with your research?
Excellent so far.
Well, I can't wait to hear what you had. You've told me a little bit about it the other day in a private conversation, and I was pretty blown away with what you were coming up with. But yeah, that was good stuff, man. Looking forward to hearing more of it. As should all of our listeners. You are in for a treat with these. Anyway, Greg, I had this fascinating encounter that I want to talk about before we bring our guest on today. Just for a moment, we're going to bring our ladies and gentlemen. We're going to bring on our guest tonight. By the way, Jonny TwoBear. He's with the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade podcast, and they are so awesome. I've met several of the founding members of the group, and they are a breed apart and scientific research in the Bigfoot paranormal research field. I am so excited. I can't wait to hear. This man has some incredible testimonies, and it's going to be a real treat for you to hear. But before that, Greg, I had this encounter on the way home several days. I think it was Sunday night, Saturday night, or no, Sunday. I was coming home. I got off at 2:00 in the morning, and I'm driving down Highway 53 in Gainesville, coming home because my house is kind of out in the woods behind a gas station off of Highway 53.
Right.
And I'm sure you know which gas station I'm talking about without naming it. So I'm pulling up, Greg. I'm coming from downtown Gainesville. It's 2:00. It's 02:30 in the morning. Okay. And I'm pulling up to this as I'm approaching this gas station because my driveway is right past the gas station. I had an incredible mind-bending experience, and it was so crazy. Like I'm starting to approach the gas station on my right side because my driveway is just right next to it by some mailboxes. So I'm approaching it, and I looked to my right as I was approaching the mailboxes, and lo and behold, I saw what I could only describe as a full body apparition of a female something in a white dress.
Right.
And it was semi loose, translucent. And
Right.
and it had a very faint glow to it, not just real faint. I've never seen an apparition before. I have heard stories of that area because I know the Lake Lanier area is a paranormal hotspot. Everything from UFO sightings to hauntings to I even heard years ago a Sasquatch rumor. I don't know if that's true or not, but maybe our guest when we bring on here in just a moment can tell us about that. Maybe we'll ask him. But at any rate, it was a profound experience, man. And the thing is when I saw this, whatever this apparition was, I had this feeling of like a charge. It was almost like an electric charge.
Static electricity almost.
Huh?
Like static electricity almost.
Yeah, kind of, but real mild. It's like a very mild jolt, and I couldn't. It's really indescribable. That's the closest thing I can get to describing it.
Right.
At any rate, that's the first time I've ever had that type of experience, man. it was profound.
Yeah. I hear that with a lot of those who are into the supernatural. Those that are like usually do ghost hunt. They usually say that whenever they experience something like that, they usually feel like an electrical charge going through their body almost.
Right.
So.
And also, and sometimes when people have paranormal experiences with sleep paralysis or abduction scenarios, they experience a very similar feeling. I hear it over and over. There's so many cases of close encounters of the fourth kind with the visitors, whatever they are. One of the common threads I hear about is the electric charge, and I've experienced something very similar to it. Paranormal experience that happened to me in my early teens. I'm going to talk about one day. Mm-hmm. But before we do that, Jonny TwoBear is one of the founding members of the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade podcast. He has had many, many different types of paranormal experiences. He's got some incredible research under his belt, and his podcast is called the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade. You can find it on Facebook and on YouTube. Jonny TwoBear, thank you so much, sir, for being with us, and welcome to Project Stargate.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. Thank you, both of you guys. I'm glad we met, man. You got some interesting stuff going on.
Absolutely, me too, man. And I'm sorry we had so many technical issues getting going. It's just some weird stuff we had going on earlier, just really weird. But at any rate, you have been. So, how long has the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade been in a organization? When did you and your partners found this organization?
It hadn't been long. I don't even know if we're on a year yet. It actually started out with just me. I started a local Sasquatch group for my state in Georgia, and I was just basically looking through research partners, what I was trying to do. And then I wound up meeting people, and as I would come across evidence, I would post it on there. And, one of my partners, we call him Captain Joe, his name's Joe Cayley. He is a witness. He actually had a sighting on a rifle range running a marksman challenge, basically. And he basically talked me into it. He wanted to start a podcast, and, we both his sighting kind of motivated me to come forward, and then all this activity around my own property kind of motivated him to do the same. And then through that process of creating the group, another lady that was in the group, her name is Angie Williamson.
Yes, I know Angie. She's a wonderful human being.
Yeah, she is, and she's got a great BS detector, and she's absolutely great at doing reports and organization, and just we all just make a good team. We just have different skill sets we bring to the table.
Definitely seems you guys make a killer team. I've really enjoyed I watched. I think it was your debut with when you and Angie and Captain Joe, and y'all were talking about Captain Joe's experience on a range somewhere on a military installation. I wouldn't mind talking about that a little bit later. But you've had profound paranormal experiences throughout your life. Tell me about your earliest experiences and why you got really, really interested in the paranormal.
All right. I really had no interest in any of this stuff except for maybe UFOs until 2012. And long story short, my wife and I were at a really bad point in our relationship. We were pretty much having the last fight of what was going to be our relationship. And then that night, an orb showed up, and both of us saw it. And then I saw it throughout the week. and it was a life-changing experience. To me, I'd been Christian since I was 18, but I kind of had lost, I guess you could say, I started to kind of lose my faith. I still believe, but I had a lot of bad things happen throughout the years, and I was pretty much just angry at God and angry at the world.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think anybody was listening. And whenever this orb showed up, and I saw it first outside, and then my wife saw it inside, it scared us. It scared me to the point to where I remember thinking that, I can't, this is my family and I can't leave them. And then later on, it kind of turned into, I realized it was more of an intervention, because I'm telling you right now, I mean, it's a pretty long story, and I mean, I can go into it, but
yeah, just a couple of things I might ask you if you don't mind, Greg. As far when you saw this ball of light, how big was it?
Initially, it was between, I guess, a soccer ball and a basketball, and it was orange red in color. And well, how about I just tell the whole story?
Sure, go ahead, Greg.
Does that work?
Is that good, Greg?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Right, I'll just tell a story. So like I said, my wife and I had been having a lot of problems about 3 years after our marriage. 2012, we were in a knockdown, drag-out fight, verbally, not physically. And I had decided that I had had enough, and I was leaving. And I told her that, and she actually went. It was summertime, and she went back to bed and laid down. And she was actually reading the Bible. I left and went and got a Subway sandwich and came back and ate. And I'm sitting there, and I started getting this urge, like I even started seeing it in my head that I wanted to go sit out on my front lawn. I've got this big rock out there and stare at the sky. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, what? I just must be extremely stressed, but I'm going to do it. I grabbed a pillow. I went out there. I laid down on this big rock, and I'm looking up at the sky. It's probably, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes, still dark, something like that. And I'm a smoker. I was laying there. I was smoking a cigarette, and my house is to my left, on my left side. Well, I get done, and I roll to my left side towards my house, and I see this big, huge ball of light come flying out of the woods, and it goes back behind my house.
When you saw that, what were you thinking? I mean, were you like, "Oh, is it a helicopter flying low?" Or
no, the first thought was,
because you are a veteran, you recognize UFO. Aircraft. You would know if it was a conventional aircraft because you're a Marine. You've seen every other kind of aircraft under the sun.
Imagine a basketball flying about 40 feet off the ground, about 35 yards away, but it was super bright, like bright orange red. And I mean, it's still daytime, but 45 minutes till dark. First thing I think is UFO. I was too scared to be excited. I had looked into UFOs a little bit, and that was pretty much my only experience with this type of stuff. But so it flies behind my house, and I jump up and I run to the other side of my house to see if it's going to come out. And keep on flying. I wanted to see it. Well, it didn't. Well, that scared me even more because it stopped. So I ran inside, and by then the kids were already in bed. And I went in there and I checked on both my kids, and I begrudgingly went in my bedroom. My wife's still up reading, and I'm like, "Look, I know we're having a fight right now, but I just saw this big ball of light fly behind the house." And she looked at me and she's like, "Well, all we can do is pray about it."
Right.
I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, that really is. I mean, what am I going to do? Fight this thing? It's a ball of light. I don't even know what to do." So I did. I stopped and I prayed about it. And that's when I kind of said to myself that I made the decision that no matter what, I'm not leaving. This is my family. my wife, my kids. You know, whatever this is, I've got to protect them.
So this
Actually,
went
I didn't
from
think I was
feeling
going to do it.
you went from being afraid of this to this ball of light to you went to the Lord in prayer, and then you had would you say that you had a calming sensation or a sense of peace or something like that about that? Maybe this was a malevolent or a benevolent rather situation.
Not at the time. At the time, I was still scared to death. And after I got done praying, I went in there and I looked at, checked on the kids again. I went in the living room, and it sounded like something was on the roof. So I went and grabbed a pistol and a flashlight, and I ran outside. By this time, it's dark. And I'm shining it around. I don't see anything. Go around the yard. I don't see anything. I come back inside. I sit down on the couch and turn the TV on, and maybe 5 minutes later, my wife screams my name. And it was shocking. It was, like we talked about last night, blood curdling. It actually, it was so bad, and it scared me so much, it actually made me angry. I was thinking, if there's not a great white shark in your bed right now, then there's no excuse to be screaming like that. But even after seeing this ball of light, you know, it was crazy. So I jumped over the back of the couch. I ran in there. My wife, she's got the light on, and she's sitting there with the covers pulled up to her face. And she said, "I saw it." I said, "You saw what?" And she said, "The ball of light." And she described that she went to, she was done reading. She turned the lights out. She went to pull the covers up. And about 2 feet away from her, this ball of light about the size of a pea, but it was extremely bright. She described the same exact color that I did, except she said it was as bright as the lit end of a cigarette in a dark room.
Oh, wow.
And it appeared 2 feet away. And
Wow.
she screamed, and then it was gone. And she turned the light on, and then that's when I ran in there. So we went through the whole process of, I went and got the kids. I put them in bed with us. I laid there for a little while, turned all the lights on in the house. I mean, we were both extremely scared for whatever was going on. And the night went on, nothing happened, put the kids back in bed. That's pretty much it. Now, that week, my wife and I had talked about it. The fight was pretty much over with because that was taking up all my, it was an extremely, I didn't know how to take it, but it was an extremely impactful event at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And, but throughout the week, and now this is summertime, where my recliner sits, my fireplace is off to my right-hand side. And, I kept seeing this ball of light out of the corner of my eye, same color that I saw, but the size that my wife described, about the size of a pea. It looked to me like it was coming in and out of the fireplace. I probably saw it 2 or 3 times throughout the week. And it was always out of the corner of my eye, and it was always at the fireplace. And I think the fear actually started, my curiosity kind of took over.
What do you think it was?
I actually remember, I honestly thought it was still maybe UFO related or something. I had no idea. I called a couple different people. I believe, I haven't been on there because I think you got to pay for it now, but I think it was MUFON, and I actually filed a report. Had a guy call me, and I talked to him about it, and he's the first one to say, you know what, that sounds more spiritual than anything. I'm like, man, you know, with everything that was going on, it really does. Well, he was wanting to come out here. My wife didn't want to have anything to do with it. She said she doesn't want more people coming out here, and she wants it to go away. It just basically scared the Jesus out of her. Well, at the end of the week, she works from home, and all her shipping supplies are downstairs, and she was still scared. She asked me, she said, "Hey, will you come stand over here at the stairs?"
Jonny? Jonny? Johnny? I think we lost Johnny. Hold on one moment. Greg, you still with us?
I'm still here.
Okay, I'm going to get him back. Hold on one moment.
Yeah,
Hang tight, man.
I just got
Bear with us just a moment.
got a message saying lost connection.
There we go. He should be back in. This is a fascinating story, Greg. Like,
Oh yeah.
I think that this story is really going in a fascinating direction. Let's see. I think he's back. Johnny, you with us?
Yeah, I'm back.
All right,
sorry,
man.
man.
That's okay. Technical issues happen. It's not a podcast without at least one glitch or two, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of podcasts, we're definitely going to talk. I definitely want to talk about the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade later on. But you have MUFON. You filed a report with MUFON.
Right.
You spoke to a MUFON investigator, and they told you that this seems like it could possibly be a spiritual matter. Now, what's fascinating about that, this is what's really fascinating. That right there is very telling in the sense that I'm seeing more and more and more connections between so a lot of these spiritual matters and these UFO matters. It's almost undeniable at this point for me.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that just because of my own personal experience. But the basically the end of the story is after I have this conversation with this guy, and my wife doesn't want to have anything to do with it. It's at the end of the week. She wants me to stand at the top of the stairs for her to get her shipping materials and come back up. Well, she's got her stuff. She's walking up the stairs. She gets about halfway up, and that ball of light appears about a foot over her head.
It's back.
And as she walks, as she steps, she takes about 2 or 3 steps. It stays at the same exact height, right above the same distance over her head, and goes up the stairs with her. And I did not say a word. I didn't tell her till about 6 months later. I was afraid that, number one, at the time, that she would wig out, like her leg
I
trying
can
to
imagine.
get away.
Yeah.
And two, that she'd want to move out of the house, thinking that it was something. But that was, when that happened, for whatever reason, it didn't feel hostile to me at all. It was more of like I don't know. I guess that's kind of when it kicked in on how my perception of all of that was to me, and it took a long time to figure it out. But with everything included, the timing, the fact that I was going to get up and leave and get a divorce the next day was my plan. That was intervention, and it was finally the answer to all the prayers me and my wife had been praying, even at our worst. We knew we weren't fixing things on our own, but we were both still praying to God for help. And things did not change overnight. Nothing. It was a process. But I went from about to leave my family that night to right here, 13 years married. I have everything a man could ask for. Me and my wife have never been better.
Wow, that's an incredible testimony, man. I really appreciate you sharing that with us, Greg. That's one of the best testimonies I think we've had on this program. That's pretty amazing.
Yes, it is.
Story. It really astounds me, how he kind of thought at first this might be a UFO situation, and there's a good reason for that. Greg, I wanted to tell you, I don't know if I had mentioned this to you earlier or not in our conversation, but he did have some UFO encounters before this. Is that correct, Johnny?
No, it was actually after this, and I think that was intentional. I think that was that whole incident solidified my faith, like beyond measure. It's unshakable now. I can honestly say, I mean, I'm a human being, but I don't worry about things anymore. Like, I know I have given my life, my children's life, and everything we do to God. It's just that simple. And I honestly think that the UFO stuff popping up after that was to try to convince me otherwise, that you did not have a life-changing encounter with your maker, possibly. It was a UFO. And I think there was a battle going on. And I think it was all a battle of where my attention was going to go. And I prayed about it. I said, hey, God, if these UFO things are not from you, I don't want anything to do with them. Well, I haven't seen one since. So
wow, that's pretty telling.
It's all of it's speculation. You know, I don't know how to. I can only tell people what I witnessed and what I felt. I don't know. I don't have solid answers, but I know where my life was and I know where my life is now. And I don't think any of that was a mistake. So I could be completely wrong. You know, there may be actual UFOs and there may be, I don't know, entities pretending to be UFOs. I don't claim to know that, but
anything's possible.
Right.
Greg, what's
that's where it all started.
Yeah. So it started with that, and then you started having these UFO encounters. Greg, did you have, before we proceed, did you have any questions for him?
Oh, no.
Okay. Can you tell us about a couple of these UFO encounters?
Yeah, there was only, I guess what I consider UFOs, two different incidents. Now, the one time was, I don't know, maybe a year later, probably not even that. I worked for an airline, and it was at the airport, and there were probably 6 of us that witnessed 2 spinning white cue ball looking UFOs about 100 feet over. It was actually very weird because when it started, we were standing outside of an airplane waiting on something. I don't know. I can't remember. They were fixing something. I was standing there with my supervisor. For whatever reason, I looked straight up in the air, right above my head. And these 2 white spinning cue ball things were flying up above us. And I looked at them, and I looked at my supervisor, and I said, "What in the blankety blank is that?" And she said, "I don't know, and I don't want to know." And she walked off. Well,
dang.
Yeah.
I don't blame
I went and got a couple of my buddies. And we were all standing there watching these things. And, you know, I had witnesses. Another one was, I don't know, maybe a couple of years later. And I wish I would have documented every single thing that's happened. I didn't start documenting things until probably 2019, 2018, something like that. But the second one was, I was driving home from somewhere. I had my son in the truck. It's about an hour before, a little closer to 30 minutes before the sun was going down, and I turned off the main road, and my driveway is about 100 yards off the main road, and I was about halfway, and there was a black triangle, probably, I don't know, 50 to 80 feet above the tree lines, right in the middle of the road, and it was probably maybe 200 yards away, and I'm looking straight at it. And what obviously it caught my eye, but what really stuck out was how slow it was going. It was almost like it wasn't even moving, and I stopped dead in the middle of the road and staring at it. I'm like, well, I can't stay here, so I pull up in my driveway, and as I get out and I look up, and this thing's just slowly going over my head.
Did you have that sense of high strangeness that I've experienced when having some of these types of encounters, and a lot of other people's, where you just feel like there's no noise coming from the object or anywhere else for that matter? The crickets are quiet, the wildlife is quiet. Did you have that high moment of high strangeness?
the strangest thing to me was how absolutely non-emotional I was about it. It was almost like it was,
You were programmed.
I don't know how to describe it. I didn't react. I didn't, all I did was look at it, and it wasn't, I don't remember feeling anything. I didn't hear anything. The only reason why I quit looking at it is because my son, he actually stuck his head out of the window and said, "What are you looking at?" And he was looking straight up at it.
Wow.
And I
So you
told
had
him
multiple
nothing.
Eyewitnesses.
Yeah. Well, he didn't even see it though. That was the weird part, is he didn't see it. He asked me what I was looking at as he's looking where I'm looking. And I said, "Nothing, let's go." And I kind of snapped out of it and got in the truck, and we drove down the driveway. But either he didn't comprehend what was going on, or he just didn't see it at all. But I never brought it up to him again, because he's too young at the time. But that was the only other one. Now, there's a whole bunch of us around here, including me, 4 members of my.
Greg, we're having another technical glitch here. Looks like we lost Jonny TwoBear. That's all right, though. We'll bring him right back. You still with us, Greg? You still with us, Greg? This conversation is getting really fascinating. Let me get these guys laughing at me. I mean, I'm sorry, folks, but we're back. We just lost connection. Anyways, this happens in certain subjects. I just don't know why. When I'm talking about certain things on this podcast, this happens. It's crazy.
Well, it's just part of it, man. Part of podcast. It happens to us all the time.
But anyway, at any rate, we were talking about that feeling of high strangeness.
Right.
Continue.
That time, the strangeness came from not feeling anything. It was almost like it didn't even happen. I mean, I know it did. I'm not crazy. But I was strangely disconnected. And I'll tell you, one of the other guys that he's in our group, his name's Mike Taylor. He's a professional mountain climber. He had a UFO sighting. It was a mass sighting. Him and his mother, when he was a child, they were driving home and they saw this thing. It's the guy I was telling you about that lives out near you. And they thought it was the end of the world. Like literally, that's how much it scared them. And in comparison, when that happened to me, I didn't have any feelings over it. It was just I was very disconnected. Now there's a good chance, especially with those black triangles, that, that's government. I don't know. There is
some of them are, I know for sure.
Right. So, I don't know. I don't know what it was. There is an airport, I don't know, 10 miles from here. They could have been testing something for all I know, but all I know is what I saw. And, but that was the other thing, that we have a ton of witnesses, and it's 4 of my family and three of the neighbors is orbs. I've personally seen 7 orbs since 2012 around here.
Good gracious.
My daughter has seen one again after saying a prayer. It was on a night that it was real stormy, and she was in bed with us. We were both asleep. She said a prayer for protection, and she just said a white ball of light appeared in our bedroom. We saw a blue one, all 4 of us, one afternoon. It always seems to be around the same time, too, which is really weird, right before sunset. All 4 of us came home, got out of the vehicle, and there's a blue orb in the woods. My neighbors have seen one of my old neighbors had a video of one floating in between our houses. So the orb thing, again, I don't know what. Sometimes there's a connection, like a spiritual connection, and sometimes it's just random. They just show up.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know if it's a combination of me and the area or what. But, you know, I lived 32 years without seeing anything abnormal at all.
Usually people who have all these...
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to comment. Usually people who have all these different types of experiences, Johnny, they also, a lot of these people have some sort of adept psychic ability. Do you have anything like that going on?
No, man, not that I know of. I mean, I'm really, I guess you can say I'm pretty in tune with people. I get a pretty good.
So you're empathic.
I don't know. I mean,
That's
I haven't really looked into that.
That's basically what that is that empathy is being able to feel what other people are feeling. That's the basis of what empathy is.
Well, I mean, I guess you could say that. I mean, I guess I would say I'm a good judge of character, maybe, is how I would describe it. But I mean, I'm wrong all the time, but pretty good at it. But I don't know. And plus, you start throwing in the Sasquatch stuff after, let's see, what year? It was probably 2016, 2017 is when all the strange activity started happening around here on the ground. And it actually all started with my neighbors. But I don't know if you want to go into that or how.
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact,
or,
I want to get into that in our next segment here because we have a few more minutes. We got to go to break. But I tell you what, why don't we just go to break, and when we come back, let's talk all about Sasquatch and the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade. Does that sound good to you guys?
Yes, definitely.
All right. Let's. When we come back, we will talk about the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade and Jonny TwoBear's experiences with the infamous Sasquatch. You're listening to the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade with Jonny TwoBear on Project Stargate. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Project Stargate. We're here with Greg, my co-host Greg Ship, and Jonny TwoBear. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me back.
Very weird technical glitches, but we're going to make this happen one way or another. I'm bound and determined because we're getting into the meat of this podcast. Actually, the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade. Folks, this podcast is really awesome. We got some. They are Johnny and Angie and Captain Joe and the rest of the gang are very talented and investigators and very knowledgeable investigators, and we're going to talk about that. Greg, what do you think about the idea of Sasquatch? We really haven't talked about Sasquatch very much. What's your thoughts on it?
We have not, but I've spoken about with a few other friends and some coworkers.
And Ron Moorhead too.
And Ron Moorhead, yes, I remember. Sasquatch has always been fascinating. I've heard about him for many years since I was a little kid, and it's bizarre because one of the things I observed and what a few of my friends observed is that despite the fact that Sasquatch has been seen all over North America, there's never any fossils ever found of them, which is kind of bizarre.
Yeah, we don't find carcasses. You never. It's just very. It's like they had the ability. It's almost like as if they had the ability to vanish into thin air. And I've heard a lot of stories like that. But Jonny, tell us about your research. Tell us about your experiences with the mighty Sasquatch.
literally got into all the, it literally fell in my lap, you know, all the other weird stuff that was going on. I paid attention. It was extremely interesting, but I didn't dive into anything.
Oh, we lost him again.
The UFO stuff.
Hey, Johnny, you're breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay, I believe my headphones just died. That's all that was. So I'm on. What am I saying? Oh, yeah. Basically, I didn't dive into the other stuff because I felt like it'd be chasing my tail. I didn't know enough. There wasn't, you know, with spiritual stuff, orbs, you know, maybe more UFOs. There's nothing you can really get your hands on. You know, there's nothing. There's very few incidents where, you know, even with UFOs, there's actual physical evidence. So I just didn't feel the need to go down those roads. And, but it all started around here. I live basically in the middle of the woods. I live about a mile off the road. And I have one neighbor, and then one neighbor in front of them, a little bit closer to the road. They're about 100 yards away from me. And behind me is a management area, a wildlife management area. It's about, I think it's about 20,000 acres, something like that. But so I'm kind of outskirts, but I'm not super rural. I mean, I've got probably 6 gas stations within 6 miles of me, you know, and a Publix down the road. So I'm kind of on that border. But it all started with activity around my neighbor's house. And we all thought that it was people. And they were basically just getting harassed at night. They were having rocks thrown at the house, thrown at the windows, slapping the house. All kinds of weird stuff like that was happening. And then, you know, something would happen and I knew the guy, so something would happen and he'd call me, or I'd hear them yelling or whatever, and I'd run over there. And all of us, you know, kept trying to figure out who this was. And, you know, my time in the military and hunting, I mean, I had basic tracking knowledge, and I never couldn't find any footprints. I couldn't figure out how in the world they were getting in and getting out. There were nights that I would stay out in the woods and wait for something to happen. And we never could figure out what it was. And I don't even really know when it never crossed my mind that it was Sasquatch or anything like that for about 6 months, maybe more, like 6 to 9 months, something like that. And I believe I had watched enough TV with my kids, like Finding Bigfoot or whatever, to pick up on a few things that were kind of falling into place, like things that I would hear. Like, for instance, out behind my house one evening, I heard a wood knock. It basically sounded like a baseball bat hitting a pine tree. And I didn't know what in the world that was until later on. I saw it on TV, and supposedly these things make wood knocks. I had a couple moments that basically sent me down looking into it seriously. One of them was one evening, there was commotion over at my neighbor's house. I actually heard gunshots. Now, by this time, it had gotten so bad, they were literally calling the cops about once every 2 weeks. The sheriff's department would drive out here, and we'd all walk around and try to figure out, try to catch whoever was doing it. And right, they've got family that works for the sheriff's department, so they weren't afraid to call. You know, they would call whenever they needed to. So one of these nights, one of the guys, I heard gunshots, and I jump up, I grab my gun, and I run over there, and he's standing out in the middle of the yard with a gun. And I'm like, well, man, what's up? And he said, they did it again. I'm like, what did they do? And I can't remember. They threw a rock or a stick at his daughter's window. And so he ran outside and put a couple rounds in the ground. He said, well, I called the cops, and I'm standing there with a gun. I'm like, well, I don't want to be here with a gun when the cops roll up in the dark. So I'm going to go over there in the wood line between our houses and just watch over you. And he's like, all right. Well, he went and put his rifle up, but he had a pistol on his hip. And I'm sitting there. I'm taking a knee. I'm down on one knee, and I got my rifle, and I'm listening. I'm watching. He's right in the middle of the yard. He's 70 yards away, standing there with his arms crossed and a stick, probably about, 18 inches long, bigger than my thumb, comes flying from the wood line and hits him dead in the chest. The best throw I've ever seen in my life. I mean, had to be 50 yards, close to.
That's incredible.
But it hit him right in the chest and bounced off. It scared the crap out of him. He said a few cuss words. He fell going inside. Yeah. And he ran inside, and I'm like, oh, my God, I can't believe that just happened. And the cops showed up, and I guess I didn't go over there, and I talked to him later on and asked him, dude, what happened? And he said, somebody hit me with a stick while I'm standing here with a gun. I'm like, yeah, I know. Well, that was number one. That was kind of like, what in the world's going on here? And then, for whatever reason, the activity started picking up over here. And it would literally take 2 hours for me to tell you guys everything that happened over here. But I started listening to podcasts and stuff and trying to figure out if that's really what this was. And I would hear something on the podcast, and lo and behold, it would happen here. Like, I'm sure y'all have heard, or maybe you haven't heard, that these things mimic owls.
Stop right there for 1 second. Stop. I'm sorry to interrupt. I apologize. Speaking of podcasts, my favorite character in the new Ghostbusters movie is Podcast. I love that kid. Have y'all seen Ghostbusters yet? Ghostbusters Afterlife?
Yes, I have.
Oh, man, I love Podcast. That's my boy right there, man. Oh. All right, sorry. Continue, please.
That's all good. Give good shout out to Podcast.
That's right. Please continue, sir.
But basically several things would happen around here. I would hear the fake owls, super close.
That's creepy.
Owls that were on the ground, at night, hanging out on the ground, that didn't sound like owls, but they kind of did.
That's ultra creepy.
Yeah, it was, some of the stuff was creepy. One night there was something on the other side of my fence. I've just got a horse fence around my property. And this was one of those weird things that I couldn't figure out. It was night, and my dogs went nuts. I went to the fence. There's a little thicket over here next to my fence, and I can hear large bipedal footsteps. I turn my light on, and it quits walking. Well, I turn my light off, and it starts walking again. Crunch, crunch, crunch. But I can't see anything move, and I don't see anything.
How close by did it sound like it was? Like if you're standing there, if you had a guess, how far away was this sound coming from? If you could guesstimate.
When it started out, it was no more than 30, 35 feet on the other side of the fence.
Wow, that's a stone throw.
Super close. Right. So I'm hearing this bipedal crunch, 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 and I turn my light on, and it would stop. And then I turn it off, and it would start doing it again. And my dogs are still going crazy, but it never picks up speed. Every time I turn my light on, it stops, and it keeps doing this until it's out of earshot, just in a straight line.
Dang.
It never sped up. It never ran away. I couldn't see anything. And what was even more confusing is the woods and stuff that it was in. I've cleared it out since because there's a chicken coop there now. But I should have been able to see something move. I should have been able to see some movement from just the trees around it or whatever. The briars all in there. It was very weird. I couldn't figure it out.
I'll say.
So that was one of the things that started, it clicked. I'm like, man, I can't believe, is this really what I'm dealing with? Well, I got super interested and I started checking the surrounding area behind my property. And lo and behold, I started finding what people call structures, stick structures, these little asterisks and teepees and stuff like that look like a blind kid made them. They're like not very well put together, but they're obviously made. And when I was in an area about a half a mile from here, in this real strange area where there's all kinds of those structures back there, I found my first track. And it was clear as day. There was no, I've got a picture of it on on our Facebook page, I believe. But anyway, it was only 3-toed. It was probably, I can't remember. It's probably 13, 14 inches long and about 6 inches at the toes. But it had like big, huge toes. I mean, it was massive. Mm-hmm. So then it really, I kind of got hooked then. I'm like, well, maybe that is really what's going on here.
So well, typically they're very long, like the length, it seems like the length of Bigfoot tracks are really long, but they're not as wide as I envisioned they would be. Most of the ones, at least I've seen a couple that were kind of wedge shaped almost. I've seen a few like that, but usually most of them I've seen, the majority of them were kind of like you're describing.
Well, I've got a theory on this one too, is since then, skipping ahead, I found this particular is the left foot. Only the left foot has 3 toes on this specific individual. The right foot has all 5 toes. So for whatever reason, I don't know if it lost toes or if it was deformed, but apparently its left foot only has 3 toes on it.
Oh.
But, that didn't come till later, after a lot more snooping around back there. But basically the pinnacle moment of when I finally, before I even had my first sighting, I had a night to where I'd been doing these nightly patrols. Basically, I was trying to get answers, and I got impatient. So like a dumb grunt, I got my guns, and I loaded up flashlights and FLIR and everything else, and started doing patrols at night, trying to get some kind of response, just anything.
Back in the bush.
Back in the bush. And, nothing happened. And I did that for a couple of weeks. And then one night I had done the patrol, and the next day I was working on my kid's treehouse. I was building it, and by the end of the afternoon, it was again the same. It's all weird stuff always happens right before dark. I was sitting on the front porch, and right behind the treehouse, there was a tree on the other side of my fence down the hill, and all of a sudden the tree just starts shaking back and forth.
Oh my gosh.
Like something had the bottom of it. It was just shaking the hell out of it.
Wow.
Well, but I couldn't see the bottom 10 feet of the tree because of the hill. So I ran over there and I didn't see anything. Well, I got all excited. I got my stuff together that night and I went out. And actually, right when I stepped out on my porch, my dogs took off and they went to that same side of the house. So I'm like, all right, here goes. I'm gonna figure out what this is. So I run out there, close the gate. I get to the top of the hill. There's a trail that goes in between my house and my neighbor's property, and it goes downhill and it goes into this pine thicket. Well, I get to the top of this hill and I start going in, and then all of a sudden rocks start falling all around me.
Wow.
It was literally like somebody took a handful of rocks and just threw them up in the air, but not one of them hit me. So
how close do they land? I mean, do you think that they were specifically thrown at you or thrown in your general direction? Do you think it was malevolent, or what were you think?
I think it was just a warning. At the time, it was nothing was hitting me, and it was only getting like maybe within 3 feet of me, but it was all around me. It was almost like somebody was above me and then dropping rocks all at the same time, just around me, trying intentionally not to hit me. So that happened. I backed up, I stood there, and I'm like, all right, this is my chance. I gotta I got to figure out what this is. So I start walking again, and then the rocks start hitting all around me again. When I get to the same point, there's a big boulder down there. And right when I get to that boulder, these rocks start falling all around. So this kind of made me mad. And I was probably more mad that it scared me than anything. But I said, if you hit me with a blankety blank rock, I'm going to shoot. Well, nothing else happened. And I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. So I kept going down the trail. I was probably back there for about 10 minutes.
Man, you are so Marine, bro. You are so Marine, bro.
Why is that?
Man, that's what I would expect a grunt. Really, a grunt thing to say. That's a grunt thing because I'm 11 Bravo Army Infantry. That was really cool. That sounds like something I would say. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but so I went back there. I didn't see anything, and I barely heard anything. It did kind of sound like I was getting paced a little bit, but it was like really, really light, like nothing heavy at all, like a rat or something. So I make
gotta be a big rat,
right? So I make my way to the top of the hill, and I'm standing there, and I'm looking around with my thermal, and I see a squirrel or something across my neighbor's yard on the side of a tree, and it jumps off the tree, and something comes up behind it, but I can't see what it is because it's back in the trees, and the thermals don't go through trees. So I'm
secret
standing
squirrel.
there staring at it. Right. So I'm looking across the field and standing there looking, and from about 30 feet away, something growls at me, and it's the same exact growl that I have recorded that is up on our YouTube page. Now, it's not the same. The one on the YouTube page is not from that night. This is separately. I've been growled at 3 or 4 times now. But, so this thing growls at me, and it's like nothing I had never heard or experienced. Or right when it happened, I had my answer. Pretty much.
I bet you did.
Yeah, there was nothing. It wasn't even, and to be honest, even though it scared the crap out of me, it wasn't like an aggressive growl. It was more of a, hey, I'm over here type of a growl. Like, I kind of felt like he was trying to put me in my place, is what it felt like.
Like, this is my territory.
I mean, I don't know, because I didn't see it, obviously, but that's what shocked me more than anything, is how close it got without me even knowing. And I'm standing there. I've got a flashlight in my back pocket. I've got a pistol in one hand and the thermal in the other. And when it growled, I would not move because I was bracing for what came next, or I was too scared to move because I didn't want to bring it on myself. I didn't know what to do. So I stood there. I took my eye away from the thermal, and I said, all right, man, I get it. I'm going to leave. And I stood there. I've got it timed on the thermal because I was recording. And I could only stand there for 3 more minutes, and I backed out and left. Well, I was pretty much sold after that. And I kind of went down the rabbit hole and collecting evidence and had more stuff happen. And my sighting is actually pretty boring. I
haven't seen anything boring about this. The conversations we've had, man. I just want to tell you that straight up. And also, Greg, I want to interject with this as well. If we listened to those videos, we watched several pieces of evidence you sent me, and it's some very good content. I want to make sure that I post a link to your channel and those videos on Project Stargate Facebook page. But Greg, what did you think about that growl?
Oh, if it was me, I would have taken off running.
Yeah, no kidding, man. I mean, it was like a low guttural, but kind of guttural is the feeling I got. What did you feel?
Yeah, same thing. That's kind of my take on that.
Creepy.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to hear that being dark out in the woods. That's the last thing I want to hear.
Yeah, no kidding,
No.
man.
It's not fun. The one I actually got recorded, it was let's see, 10, 20, 30, 40. It was probably 50 yards away on the other corner of the house away from me when it growled. And that's, I mean, the recording's about as clear as it gets. And but the first time it happened, it was 30 feet away. So that's why I say it felt like it was putting me in my place.
Yeah.
But the that pretty much sent me down the rabbit hole. I was hooked from then on, and I started buying equipment and doing as much research as I could until eventually, about almost a year later, after spending all this time and effort and money buying equipment, I was sitting on my front porch real late one night, and all of a sudden, one of them is walking down my driveway. My driveway comes at an angle kind of across the front of my house. And when it gets to a certain point, you can see my neighbors, and they've got all their lights on.
Right.
And they're downhill. Well, this thing is perfectly silhouetted. It takes about, 3 or 4 steps. I see the right side is towards me, and I'm pretty much in shock. And I stand up. I was sitting down, and I stand straight up. And when I stand up, it turns towards me. And that was it. It was massive. It was probably, you hear it all the time, but it's a common width. It's 4 feet. These things are usually if you believe what people say when it comes to the research, the males, especially in this part of the country, are in between 3 and 4.5 feet wide at the shoulders. And it was every bit of 4 feet wide. And it had
we lost Jonny again. It happens. It always happens, Greg, when our guests things get really interesting with our guests. It never fails. That's okay. We'll bring them right back on.
Yeah.
This has been an unusual night for these technical glitches. My goodness, are we on to something? Hey, Jonny, welcome back, buddy.
Hey,
Jonny. Hey,
yeah.
Welcome back, my friend. This has been the most unusual night for these glitches. It's just crazy. At any rate, you were talking. Go ahead, please continue.
No. So it was, like I said, it was about 4.5 feet wide. Captain Joe makes fun of me all the time because it looked like it had big, like 1980s rock band hair. Like it had real long, like poofy hair.
Wow.
Now
that's cool.
Keep in mind, not like it almost looks like they've got a mane because there's so much back hair, basically, right. and their hair's long. So it all looked. Now, keep in mind too, I'm looking at a full body silhouette. I measured it out. I'm 60 yards away exactly. But it's full body silhouette. I see it like it's walking in front of like the movie screens at a drive-in.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this thing. So, I couldn't see the color of the hair. I didn't see the eyes. I didn't see any details like that. But when I saw it, it was obvious, unless there's a 7-foot, 4-foot wide dude with extremely long arms that lives around here that was messing with me at 2:00 in the morning, then it is what it is. It's, I had no doubt what I was looking at. The way it walked, the way it swung its arms, the width, every bit of it. And it was amazing. It only lasted about 6 seconds because by then it had moved. The trees were behind it, but it was about 3 seconds from the right side and about 3 seconds straight on. And it was cool. It was definitely, but I was actually a little disappointed. I was like, it was almost like it was intentional.
Really? So you were disappointed. What was your vision for if you were going to have a Bigfoot sighting like that? What was your vision for that? If it was disappointing.
So easy.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
think it would. I thought it was going to require a lot more effort, and I had been given it a whole lot of effort. And I'm standing, and I'm sitting there on my front porch. I don't even have any shoes on, and it just walks across my driveway. And I'm
Wow.
like, well, there you go, you know. And you know, and that whole time, you know, trust me, I doubted, and I understand. You know, about 50% of the people out there that listen to this or listen to me are going to say that guy's full of crap, especially with all the different activity. Well, I don't have an answer for you. I know what I've seen. I know what I've experienced. I know what other people have seen and experienced. And I am confident in what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. But I understand how odd it is. Just like with the, you know, seeing the UFOs and the orbs. You know, I wanted to leave it alone because there were no answers to be had from what I saw that I could do. But when the Bigfoot stuff started happening, I latched onto it because I could actually get evidence, you know, and everybody, we just had an outing this past weekend, which actually turned out to be great. And everybody makes fun of me because of all the equipment I have. You know, I've got 3 different cameras, a recorder, and everything else. I got it laid out everywhere, but there's been so many times where I've had chances to get good evidence and I didn't have anything recording. So, you know, I put a lot of effort into it, and I believe, number one, it's very, very important for people to know this. Even if they don't believe me, just know there are things out there you're not being told about. And I've seen them, and my entire house is like a perimeter. I've got cameras all around it. I've got one side of my house that does not have cameras, and that is because there's only one high window there that's not accessible.
Wow.
My dogs, I never let them out of the yard. My children, they don't go out in the woods without me. You know, to me, this is serious. This is part of life, and I owe it to my children to try to figure out what this is and to be honest with them, you know, because and when I found out that all this stuff was real, I was a little disappointed in the people who came before us. And I know why that is. It's because there's shame. For whatever reason, there is a shame that people have when they see these things or have any kind of interaction. And they live with this shame their whole life, and they're afraid to talk to people like they did something wrong.
Right.
Well, it's not our fault that these things exist, but nobody's telling us about it. And it's not, and that's why I had no intention of doing any of this. Anybody who knows me before I started the podcast and got into all this stuff, I would be the last person that you would pick to do this kind of stuff. I'm not very sociable. I don't like technology very much. It's always been hard for me to make friends. I was always more focused on my family. But through doing this, I've had to get better at all that stuff. Because like Captain Joe, the reason why basically I started doing this is because Captain Joe, he lost his leg saving 3 Iraqi civilians.
Wow. But God bless him.
He is a war hero. And he works for I don't know if you've heard of he works for the Outdoor Channel. He works on a production called The Pig Man. It's a hunting program.
Oh, wow.
He's got a lot of contacts in the outdoor world and the shooting industry. He's one of the best there is out there at long range marksmanship. And he had a sighting on a range in Georgia during the middle of a live fire exercise doing spotting. And he didn't tell anybody about it for 3 years. I mean, the guy's he lost his freaking leg, for God's sakes. You know, he's as high as a caliber as it comes, and he felt ashamed, or not really ashamed, but just that somebody would not take him seriously, and we both, through that, I understood how, and just like you're a veteran, you understand how rifle ranges, how strict they are.
Oh yes, it's very controlled and precisely controlled down to the round, but down to the very round of ammunition.
So for him, he reached out to me because he understood I would know just how serious he was about it. And that's why we started doing what we're doing, is because, we focus on military, law enforcement, first responders, stuff like that, only because that's our wheelhouse. Those are the people we know. So, I mean, we take reports from whoever will talk to us, but, that's just kind of what we focus on. And, we've had plenty of veterans contact us and say, hey, you know what, man, I saw this. I had this experience. And, that's why we're doing it. And that's why, I don't know. That's why we put ourselves out there. I'm not doing it for money. I've got a good job, in fact, we don't take any money at all. And I actually get in trouble for that all the time, but we don't take donations or anything. Everything's, self-funded.
Right.
Trying to keep it as honest and on the up and up as we can. Not to say taking money for research isn't honest, but, that's what I've got. Two goals. Number one is to get people that have had these experiences to come forward and have a safe place. It's kind of corny, and we say it on the intro to our podcast, welcome to the team. That's what it is. It takes a lot for people to open up to strangers and to say, hey, I experienced this. Because think about it. You're literally asking a stranger to instantly tell you what kind of person they think you are.
Yeah.
Are you a liar? And that's what these people are doing. They open up and they just wait for the fallout. Well, we try to keep the fallout to a minimum. You come, you give us a report, we'll talk about it, and we'll help you out. In fact, I know I'm getting kind of long-winded here.
That's okay.
But our last outing we had is exactly why we do what we're doing. We had a guy that contacted Captain Joe. His name is Happy Harris. He had an incident 20 years ago on his buddy's hunting property. It's a 200-acre property. He went out, he was hunting, he was walking down a gas line. He came to a blind. It looked like a man-made blind made out of branches and sticks and everything else.
Really?
Well, yep. Now he sat down in this blind, and as he's sitting there, two somethings came up behind him, and all he heard is what they call samurai chatter. And that is, it's reported a lot. Apparently Sasquatch do have a language, and then when they communicate, a lot of people describe it different ways, either as a samurai underwater, or a buddy of mine actually thought it was Russian one time. It sounds like another language all blended up. Well, he heard that.
That's
right
incredible.
And there was two individuals. Well, it scared him so bad he passed out. Well, he woke up 10, 15 minutes later, 300 yards away, laying next to his truck. Or no, excuse me, in his truck. He was in the front seat of his truck. Had no idea how he got there. The door was open, but he went from passed out to being back at his truck 10 minutes later, waking up in his truck. Has no idea how it happened.
So he knows it was 10 minutes later. He definitely, because this sounds very, very familiar.
Well, and I think that's probably I don't know, it's probably a generalization. He probably thinks it was 10, 15 minutes later. It was the time after when he passed out.
Understood. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely time missing, but it wasn't
Sounds
hours.
like it.
It was only. But anyway, so he contacts Joe, and they talked and blah blah blah. They became friends. I wind up talking to him. We wind up interviewing him on the podcast, and it just so happens that Captain Joe, his hunting property is 5 miles away from Happy's, and Captain Joe has had activity out there, crazy stuff like his feeder getting destroyed, a dead dog showing up right on his trail, going to his hunting blind, just a bunch of other stuff, hearing wood knocks and trees being broken in the swamps and stuff. So we make a plan after the podcast that we're going to get a group of guys together and we're going to go out there and check out both these properties. Well, we go out there and we go to the first spot we go to is Happy spot. We actually call it that.
Oops.
Oh no.
It always happens when it's getting so good.
All right.
That's all good. We'll bring them right back on. There we go. This is very unusual, isn't it, Greg?
Yeah. This is a bunch of cliffhangers within our show.
Never a dull moment, eh?
Yeah.
There you go. Welcome back, Johnny. Continue, please.
One more time. So we go out there, this group of guys. We take Happy. Happy has not been in the woods for 20 years. He'll go bird hunting, and that's about it. This experience ruined his outdoor enthusiasm. Well, he was ready to go back, and he wanted to go back with us and see if we could find any proof that these things were out there. We get there, we get out of the truck, we walk through the woods. Within 15 minutes, we're finding tracks. We follow the tracks back to a bed, which we had never found before. It's up on the Facebook page. We found enough, we're actually going to make a documentary and put it out there. But we found a couple different pine straw beds. We spooked something in the woods. We had stuff thrown us at night. We were puffed at. All kinds of evidence that we looked for. And it was right in the spot where Happy had his incident. Now, if you don't want to, it's vindication. He's got this, he's got the story, he's got this thing that happened to him. He held it in. I was the second podcast was ours that he came on. And as far as I'm concerned, evidence-wise, there's no doubt in my mind that these creatures do live in that area. And on the last day, on our way out, we went over to Captain Joe's. Now, remember, I told you before, back in June is when he cleared this area out, and he put up it's where he found his feeder and his cameras and everything were destroyed. And there was a dead dog. It was a dead Rottweiler left right on the trail that he cleared going down to his stand. Well, he wanted to show me this. And it was just me and him on the way out. And we drive over there, we get out, and we walk in a little ways, and he was like, oh, wait, here's another dead dog. So there was another skull there laying on the ground. Like, is that the one from before? He said, no, that's a new one. We're walking creepy. A little ways more. There's another dead dog. He was like, what is going on? We walk in a little more. He finds the original one from June. By the time we're done walking this little section, we had found 24 dead dogs in a half-acre section of woods.
Wow. 24?
24. I've got it all on video. And that's only from maybe 25 minutes of just walking around and spotting them and walking up and counting it. We have no idea how many more may be out there. So
God only knows. Do you think do you think that I know that the Smokies, in British Columbia and all along the West Coast are some of the biggest areas for Bigfoot activity. Do you know, are you aware of any distinct differences in certain types of Bigfoot in different areas?
There is speculation that there are different types. I think personally that it's like all the other animals. It's based on region. The further north you get, the bigger they get. And it actually seems like the further south you get, the meaner they get.
Wow.
Now,
Okay.
it's probably because of, only speculation, again, it's probably because of the further north you get, obviously they're going to get bigger because of the cold and the food sources. But there's also a lot more land the further north you go in our country. It's wide open, which would make sense that they don't have as much pressure on them, making them less aggressive. But down in, once you start getting into the southern states, you start finding that there's more and more aggression. Now, that's not always the case, though. I know a researcher that operates in New Mexico, and one of the stories he tells is a guy's walking his two dogs. A big hand comes out of the woods, grabs his dog.
Oh.
Again.
That's all right. It's your fault, Greg.
Oh, thank you.
We'll just blame it on you, Greg. It's all your fault. Speaking of which, earlier when he was talking, Johnny, when you were talking, I heard what sounded like this big metal something slamming out, just beating the tar out of somebody.
No, that's I haven't heard anything.
I had something fall down just a few minutes ago.
Oh, that was it.
I apologize.
I was like, what the crap? I'm sorry, Johnny.
One of these books on the shelf actually fell off. Unfortunately. Yeah.
Johnny, let me ask you something, man. Where can listeners go to look at these videos? Do you have a website or just a Facebook page at this time?
No, right now we just have the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade YouTube channel, and same name for the Facebook page, the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade on Facebook. And everything we get, I post on YouTube. Everything that's video wise, put it on there, and I usually also put it on the Facebook page. There's more content on the Facebook page because it's easier to put pictures on there and stuff. But that's where it's all going down. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'll talk to anyone about any of it. They don't have to come on the podcast. They don't have to tell me who they are. You just want to reach out and talk about it, that's good to go too. But you can also, let me check, I don't know it by heart. Our email is theencounterbrigade@gmail.com.
That's theencounterbrigade@gmail.com, correct?
Yes, it is. That was our original name, and then we threw Sasquatch in there. So.
Oh, okay. Roger that, man. Well, Johnny, it's been really, really awesome having you on the program. I'm sorry about all these weird and crazy technical glitches, but I really appreciate your passion and your research, and also thank you for serving our country.
Well, thank you, man. Right back at you.
Yeah, man. If we definitely need to collaborate sometime in the future. Maybe we can. Maybe we can go we can go out in the wood, go out in the bush for a while and see if we can find something and hang out or something. Because I definitely I have equipment to bring to the table. I can bring it as well. But anyway, that'd be a lot of fun.
You are more than welcome, and I encourage anyone, if you're just interested in this and you have not had a sighting or anybody that knows anyone like that, just do a little. If you're curious at all, just look up the basics. And then when you get out in your local forested areas, just start looking, and you will be surprised at what you find. And I think people will be very surprised at how many there are. I don't have a number. Nobody has a number, but we have a pretty good population in the U.S. from what I've seen, and they're staying hidden. You got to go find them.
The question is where are they hidden? And I think that's the question that a lot of people are trying to answer right now. It's a fascinating and perplexing and mind-bending question. As Greg, I think that I can't help but wonder in some cases if there's some sort of paranormal explanation for Bigfoot.
I would have to agree.
I
with
hope
you.
not.
Do what?
I still have
Said
to.
I
Oh, okay. I've seen from a lot of the cases I've looked at over the years, some of the cases kind of go towards a natural explanation, but there's not much data to go on usually with some of those cases. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you have the idea that there might be some sort of interdimensional or paranormal explanation for Bigfoot. But it's a mystery that
it's complicated.
it gets very complicated. That's right, brother.
There's a lot of crossover.
But at any rate, I really appreciate you being with us today, Greg. Thanks again for hanging out. And this has been the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade with Jonny TwoBear. Thank you. This is Project Stargate. Thank you very much.